And I'm going to talk about challenges and opportunities, but this is the headline I chose, the green transition and the future of industry from a trade union perspective. And as you mentioned rightly, we discussed a bit before I came here about, because I'm reading a book right now about a guy called Martin Siem. I think many of you guys from Norway might know him. He was a prominent industry leader of one of our member companies. We have a lot of members in what is today known as Aker Solutions. And Martin Siem was a guy who, in the 50s and 60s, he was really focusing on building up the democracy at work. He was involving the people on the ground into the decision making, and I think that's really something that we heard about this in the previous presentations as well. It's one of the main takeaways, how important that is to have involvement. So I will also be touching a bit on this later on, and that is one of the principles of the trade unions. But Martin Siem was also known for his really big enthusiasm for bringing the industry, politicians, and also the scientific community together. And they managed to build a really great enterprise based on those principles by having cooperation between those actors. And I think that's a great illustration of the importance of this event here today. And so, yes, I'm a policy advisor. I work at Fellesforbundet, and I work with industrial policy, climate policy. That's my sort of task. It's a lot. So I'm kind of having a bird's eye view on a lot of things. I'm just going to tell you guys a little bit about Fellesforbundet, since I know maybe not everyone knows Fellesforbundet as an actor. Fellesforbundet literally means the United Federation of Trade Unions. We are affiliated with the Trade Union Confederation of Norway, LO, which has a really big part in Norwegian politics. They have relations to the Labour Party, and so through that, Fellesforbundet, as a member organization of LO, is a really big player in Norwegian politics as well. And this is mainly because we represent the exporting industries, the blue-collar workers. Norway is not that huge of a market, so we need exports. We need reliable rules in the world to be able to export. And we have 175,000 members. They work in the shipyards, in the defense sector. They work in the wood processing industry, construction workers, transport, hotel and restaurant services, and more. So yes, I will, in this presentation, I will give you some insights into what, I have a survey, a report of what our members and workers think about climate change and what they think about just transition. So I have a little bit broader perspective, but energy is a really big, has a really huge importance in all of this, of course. And energy is vital for industry, so we will touch upon energy as well. So I will present this survey that was done. It was published last year, but the survey was done in 2023. And I'm sorry to all the non-native Norwegian speakers. I will translate the results for you, but I think this is really interesting. So just to start off with this first figure, 7.1 to the left, participants, and by participants I mean workers, they were asked, have your workplace been affected by extreme weather events in the past 2 years? So from 2023 and 2 years prior to that. And as you can see from the first two bars, 32% say that yes, either once or multiple times they have been affected by climate change. And that was a bit surprising to me, actually, because I thought that, as maybe a lot of other people think, that Norway is quite this protected geographical location. We're not impacted that much by climate change. But 32% say that they have been impacted in the past 2 years at their workplace. So that's quite something. And then if we jump to figure 1.1 to the right, here the question is, would you say that you are overly positive or negative to the green shift? And from here you can see that 48% say that they are positively, they're thinking positively about the green shift, and 38% say that they're neither, and only 9% say that they are negatively thinking about the green shift. So it's a bit of a nuance, because I think we touched upon it earlier that Norwegians in general are maybe a little bit more climate skeptic, and that's true if you compare on a world basis, but also you see here that, at least from the workers' perspective, if you can extrapolate from these numbers. I know you're scientists, so you might be a little bit need more data to conclude. But either way, I think this shows that maybe we have this window of opportunity. You see here that we have climate change, and in general, workers are positively thinking about the green shift as a positive thing. And so in these two last questionnaires, from this first one, 1.2, we're asking about the just transition. And from this first one, they're asked to answer a statement. How much do you agree or disagree with the following statement? I am worried that the green shift will be socially unjust. So they have to rank how much they agree or disagree with this statement. And you can see from these first two bars that 64% say that they either completely agree or they largely agree with this statement. So even though you have workers they see the impact of climate change, they see that the green shift is a positive thing, they're skeptical, and they think that the green shift might be socially unjust. So that's a bit interesting, I think, and you see that it was mentioned already, the energy debate which has been going on in Norway, and you see that it even dissolved the government last week, because it's a lot of skepticism to how we approach these issues in Norway. The last figure to the right, figure 3.1, it's also here that they're asked how important or unimportant do you feel that the following factors are for the green shift to be just in your workplace. And this is important. I have highlighted a few of the factors that they think are important. I'm not going to go through them all. But what they say here is that the number one priority for them is that workers who lose their job in the green transition needs to have help to find new jobs. That's number one priority for workers. The second one, the trade unions and the union representatives should be involved in the decision-making about the green transition. That's number two. Number three is that it should be cheaper to choose green. So economy and how things cost is really important to people, to workers. The second to last, the green shift should create new jobs. And the last one is that workers should not be forced to shift sectors or completely learn a new competence. So these factors are important because these sort of reflect on Fellesforbundet's policy on how to sort of to meet climate change, how to have a green transition, and we have policy in place to try and answer some of these exact factors. So let's look at those. And I also want to just compare. I know these data are not directly comparable with the ones that I just showed you because they have asked questions in different ways, and probably they have a different kind of pool of participants. But either way, what this shows is that Europeans as well seem to be largely in favor of more climate policy. 70% of EU citizens think that their national governments are not doing enough to tackle climate change, and more than 9 out of 10 citizens consider climate change a serious problem. So it's also here where you can see that, okay, there's this potential for support for green policies, but at the same time you see the rise of the far right in Europe, and I'm not saying that the reason for the rise of the far right is solely because of ambitious climate policies, but it's a part of the picture. At least in Norway, you see the far right party being really attacking green projects and the green transition as a whole, and they have quite some voters in these days on surveys. So I think this is a good background. So how is our approach to these issues? Fellesforbundet is also a political entity in the left side of the political spectrum, of course, being a trade union. It's actually said that whenever Fellesforbundet and Norsk Industri, which is sort of opponent, or I would say a partner on the employer side. Whenever Norsk Industri and Fellesforbundet decide something, it usually becomes that in the politics, because they have such a huge power over Norwegian politics. They have such huge member bases. They represent the exporting industries, as I said. It's really an important element of Norwegian politics. So this is how we try to facilitate a just transition. And this deals with, as I mentioned, the factor of dealing with higher costs for people. And it also deals with the involvement of workers and others. So social protection is really important here. You see that also in the climate negotiations. I was in Baku last year. And one of the big topics there is adaptation measures. Adaptation measures is dealing with the climate change and the problems we already have because of climate. And this is where social protection comes in. We need to have social protection measures, because what happens when your workplace is flooded, there is a fire, a forest fire, and the workplace is turned to nothing. How can these people have salary or anything to live a normal life if that happens? And that's going to happen more and more in the future. So we need to make sure that we have systems in place that will help these people. And even more fundamentally, I think, is the fact that we need to have a redistributive tax system. Because as I mentioned, economy is important for people. When they feel that things are getting more expensive, they're more skeptical, they're more resistant. And I think we see that today. And so here I think that this is a really important fundamental element, because the most vulnerable groups cannot take a disproportionately large share of the economic costs of the transition. You will not have a transition, a democratic transition, where people will vote for those kind of solutions if it will give them higher costs and it will hurt them more than if they were to vote for political parties that will not go for a green transition. And this also deals with the last point, involvement of workers and others. Again, this was one of the most prominent takeaways from the previous presentations, and I think this is really important. Democratic involvement of employees and local communities will garner public support, at least if you do it in the right way. I know it's easier said than done, but this needs to happen. And this was one of the principles of Martin Siem in the 50s and 60s, 70s, when he was the leader of Aker Solutions. And this is one of the factors that led to their success, to becoming a worldwide, a global, great player in terms of building ships and exporting really great technologies. So this is one of the ways we aim to do this. And we also have an industrial policy. And this industrial policy aims to deal with some of the other factors that workers said were really important for them in order to have a just transition, namely helping workers find new jobs and creating new jobs. And also it deals with the fact that workers will not be forced to change fields and completely learn new trades. Because what is really important for us is to ensure that we have enough skilled workers through supporting vocational education and lifelong learning. So vocational training is really important. We need the practitioners, the ones who can do the screwing and the hammering and the practical things. And we also need to ensure that we can deliver lifelong learning to people, to workers. Because this will enable them to go into new jobs that is coming up because of the green transition, and it will also enable them not to completely change their field of competence, but they can add on some new things along the way to make them more, let's say, that they can help more in these new technologies, which will be good for them. And in this context, we actually last year, in the collective bargaining last year, Fellesforbundet secured what is known as the upskilling and reskilling reform. And this is exactly this. This is that 1 or 2 weeks per year, workers can have 1 or 2 weeks off per year, where they can go and learn new competence. They can have education. They can do something to fill up their competence, expertise. And while they will not get their salaries covered in that period, every employer who are a part of this deal will pay into a common fund. And this common fund will compensate those workers who takes those 1 or 2 weeks off. So this benefits not only the worker themselves, because they will get more education and they can go into these new green industries, but it also helps create a more competent pool of workforce for every employer that they can choose from. So we think this is really good, but of course you will not learn a new trade in 1 or 2 weeks. This is only the beginning. We will keep working with similar policies in the future, and we will try to expand these kind of projects and agreements. We're also a strong advocate for new jobs, as I am also sort of a lobbyist, so I try to talk with the government officials, and we try to have an impact on what Norway should focus on. And of course, there are many critics of these efforts, but we want to see offshore wind happening, carbon capture and storage, hydrogen, batteries, and more. Because we need these jobs, we need to expand, and we need to we just need these jobs really. And this is really important, because demand is rapidly moving towards low and zero emission products and services, especially in Norway's most important markets, Europe and Britain. We export, I think, 90% to both Europe and Britain. So if they in the future will demand low and carbon emission-free products, we need to be able to deliver that. And how do we do that? Well, we have to electrify the industry. So electrifying the industry and making the industry use electricity as an energy source is actually about the competitiveness of the industry in the future. It's not only about climate, it's about keeping the jobs for our people, and also making them survive in the future, and being able to deliver products that our market wants. So this is really important. And to this extent, we're also advocating to have some kind of state aid in order to lower the risk for private investments to then come in and invest in these new technologies. And I think this is more important than ever before, given that competitors give tax breaks, such as with the IRA, it was mentioned earlier. Now you'll see what happens with that. Trump is not a fan of it. But China has been subsidizing their industries for years. You see with solar panels, for example, the price has gone straight down. And they have subsidized it a lot, along with their electric vehicle effort and many other things. And in this sort of context, I think it's really important that, I was in a meeting yesterday with actually the Industry and Trade Minister of Norway, Cecilie Myrseth, and she said that these days, it's actually, you can actually go back to 1999 when there was this optimism, the democracy had sort of won, and free trade was on the rise. But today that picture is completely turned around on its head. Free trade is now less prominent. Protectionism is rising, and we need to make sure that we can deliver on the industries that we really can make use of. So this is why Fellesforbundet is an advocate for an effort where we go for industries and technologies where we already have competence and geographical prerequisites to succeed. That's really fundamental for us, because then we can use the competent workforce we have, we can upgrade it, and we can then make use of it into these new industries that I mentioned, offshore wind and the likes. And science and innovation plays a vital part in this. Martin Siem was thinking a lot about this, and I think we, as Fellesforbundet also, and the industry as a whole, should again talk to the scientific community, a lot of you here, and I will be really pleased to discuss with you guys also how we can together move forward, lay plans, and sort of have a more structured way of thinking about developing the industry that we need in the future. So we will also need to target areas there where the technology and the industry have not yet reached a commercial level. So this is sort of the overall picture. This is Fellesforbundet's approach to climate change in a nutshell, and also industrial policy. And we think that this will, again, help workers find new jobs, give them new competences, and we also feel that this will not force our workers to change fields completely. So this is actually everything I had, but I want to. This is an invitation as well. I want to also say that if any of you are interested, I talked with Asgeir earlier, and it would be my pleasure to also use you guys as an instrument, as a tool, in order to bring you to our members, so that they can learn also new things and new perspectives on how we can evolve tomorrow's industry. Because we, as a democratic, we have a democratic organization. We have to sort of, our mandate is what our members want, is what our members decide on the Congress every 4 years. So unless they are also really enlightened about the opportunities and what is best going forward, we will also stumble a bit on the way. So we really we should be in sort of a relationship here where we can use each other in a positive way to make the industry better. Thank you.